people have argued about what I'm about to say here, but about 1% of the human DNA has been determined. Others have said, no, the Human Genome Project, we've decoded the entire thing. Well, that's very deceitful to say that. Okay, to say we've decoded the human DNA is what they're saying is we've taken this ladder that goes from here to Chicago, and we've got the A, B, C, D components figured out where they are. We've written the code down. Writing the code down in big blocks, A, B, C, or D, does not explain, doesn't mean you understand it. This similarity would prove nothing as far as relationship or evolution. So actually, to say they've decoded the entire human genome is very deceitful. All they've done is figured out if it's a bus or a truck. They haven't figured out the complexity of that bus. They certainly don't have all the genes figured out in this sequence. So there are thousands of differences. Now, chimpanzees cannot put their little finger against their thumb. You have a muscle that allows you to pull your little finger. You can touch any of your fingers to your thumb. The muscles in their feet are different than your muscles in your feet. You cannot grab around a tree branch with your big toe on one side and your other toes on the other side. You can try it if you want, but I would recommend you pick a low branch to practice on. Because you're not going to hang there very long, right? But chimpanzees do it just fine, don't they? It's called a grasping foot. Now that's great when you're climbing around through trees. It's not very good for running on the ground. Watch a chimpanzee's feet when it walks on the ground. They have to curl their toes under. They cannot walk flat-footed. They call them a knuckle walker. They walk on their knuckles. And it's very uncomfortable for them to walk on 2 feet for great distance. They can do it. But they kind of walk bow-legged and their toes are curled under. Humans and chimpanzees have millions of differences. The bones, the muscles, the ratio of the length of the bones. Their arms, of course, are much longer compared to their body than humans are. If you're looking for similarities, you can find them. Both have 2 eyes, same hair color in some cases. Sometimes, some humans and chimpanzees both chew with their mouth open. That doesn't prove they're related to each other. The same designer created these things. And how they got to that stage of saying, we're similar, therefore we're related, I don't understand. No, we're similar, therefore the same God designed us all. It's not that complex. Some people, though, say similarities proves relationships. So I did another spoof on this. I'll say, well, if you think similarity proves relationships, let's study the similarity of various objects in the world based upon their water content. Clouds are 100% water. One atheist said, no, they're not. There's air molecules in between. Okay, you're missing the point, right? I understand clouds have air in the middle of the water. But it's basically water in a cloud. Watermelons are 97% water. Only 3% difference. And jellyfish are 98% water. Snow cones are also 98% water. So this proves that, watermelons slowly evolved into either snow cones or jellyfish. I'm not sure which one. They're twins, and then slowly evolved to a cloud, or vice versa. Arranging something in order does not prove any kind of similarity. Doesn't prove any relationship. In the textbooks will say that fossils give evidence for evolution. This index to this book has a whole chapter. I've seen some biology books that have an entire unit, 5 or 6 chapters just on evolution. They want to make sure the kids believe that when they get out of school. This one says we have evidence from fossils. Well, let's just discuss this here. Is there any evidence from fossils to prove evolution? Suppose we're in a court of law. I stand up and I say, Your Honor, I can prove evolution. I can prove humans came from a monkey or an ape or an ape-like ancestor. And the judge says, okay, what's your evidence, Mr. Hovind? And I'll say, Your Honor, I found this fossil in the ground, buried in the dirt. And it has characteristics that are some human and some ape. The judge would say, or the opposing attorney would say, Mr. Hovind, if you find a fossil in the ground, all you know is it died. You don't even know where it died. You know where it ended up getting buried, and that's all you know. You sure don't know that it had any kids. If you went to the cemetery and dug up bones of a person, you would not be able to prove it had any children that lived. And you sure couldn't prove it had any different children. Darwin said, though, in his book, if my theory be true, That's an awfully big if. Okay? He said numberless intermediate varieties must have existed. Well, you're right. If you're going to change from a rock to a human, how many steps in between would you have to have? Each of them has to be able to live and move around and grow and reproduce and survive in its environment. So if it can already live and survive in its environment, why is it going to change? They'll say, well, the environment changes, so it has to change. Okay, so you not only have to change the organism billions of times, you have to change the environment billions of times to make the organism want to change for some reason or be able to survive. Okay? David Raup, who teaches or works at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. He's one of the guys at the museum, and he's a strong believer in evolution. He said, in the years after Darwin, his advocates, the people that promote him, hoped to find predictable progressions. By that, sequencing from apes to humans. Slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger. In general, these have not been found, yet the optimism has died hard, and some pure fantasy has crept into textbooks. Oh, you're kidding. Fantasy in our textbooks? Yes, there's fantasy in the textbooks. They dig up these fossils. Look, you don't know that it had any kids. And you sure don't know that it had different kids. Dogs today only produce dogs. People that raise dogs would tell you. I had a lady tell me a couple months ago, she said, Miss Hovind, my family and my parents and grandparents, we've been involved in raising dogs for, 60 years or whatever it was. She said, I sincerely believe that we could start with 50 generic mutts from the dog pound. You supply me 50 mutts. Go pick out the mongrel, any mongrel you want. We, with selective breeding, we will redevelop every breed of dog in the world today in less than 100 years. We could get a Great Dane and a Chihuahua and a St. Bernard and an Airedale and everything in between from 50 generic mutts in 100 years. Most breeds of dogs, if you stop and think about it, they were done by man for some particular reason. Somebody in Europe or England or something wanted to hunt weasels or groundhogs that were down in the hole in the ground. So they kept taking the puppies out of the litter that had the shortest legs. Pretty soon they developed a Docksond. Half a dog high, dog and a half long. He can run down the hole after, whatever they're after. The traits are inherited. Dogs produce dogs. That's all you're ever going to get. So why would anybody think that after observing dogs producing dogs for several thousand years of human history, what would make anybody conclude that sometime long ago and far away, dogs came from something that was non-dog? What justification would you have for that conclusion? There's no observable evidence for it. There are genetic barriers to keep it from happening. Dogs have 78 chromosomes. Adding or losing chromosomes is normally fatal or certainly harmful, like with humans.